If you have a ton of data, if you're selling millions of items on e-commerce, you can do a lot with predictive analytics and marketing automation and all kinds of cool AI tech and tools, machine learning algorithms, adaptive and predictive content, all kinds of cool things. If you're selling a few major roofing contracts that are $1 million each to some enterprise organizations, there's probably not a whole lot that AI can do to help you sell more of those items. There's basic stuff, there's productivity things, there's efficiencies that can be gained, but I don't know that you're really going to move the needle on like, oh, now we can do 100 more government contracts because we have AI. If you're in a large services or a large enterprise sale,
Yeah.
is that fair?
Yeah. So I don't know if you've heard of this framework, makers, shapers, and takers. So basically, the idea is that if you are a maker, you are spending a significant amount of money on research and development. You are taking a lot of risk. You're putting everything into AI because that's your future. Not too many companies fall in that category. There's only a few companies that are ready to have the risk tolerance and investment capabilities to become a maker. Then you have takers and shapers. Let's start with takers. So takers are the ones that they are not going to use AI as a competitive advantage, but they need to keep up with the market. So basically what they're going to do is they're going to take whatever AI capabilities the vendors of the tools that they are already using are providing to them, right? So whether you use Microsoft, you're going to use Copilot. If you're using Google as your main infrastructure in terms of applications, you're going to use Google's Gemini and so on and so forth. So you're basically just keeping up with the industry. And then you have the shapers, and that's where it gets more interesting because as a shaper, you have a wide spectrum of possibilities there. You can start with being good at prompt engineering, maybe you can use RAG, and then you can get into fine tuning, start developing agents. So there's a whole spectrum of possibilities if you decide to be a shaper, which is the middle ground between being a maker and a taker. So if you just start by deciding what you are, whether you fit in those three categories, that's already a huge step that most companies should take the time to just think through that.
Yeah, I like that. And I think the one that's interesting that people don't want to go for, there's so much hype around AI. The one that doesn't get mentioned is maybe you just sit back and see how it shakes out. Like,
Mhm.
if you're an enterprise organization, you got to compete with Google. If you're Google, Meta, OpenAI, Microsoft, you got to be going all in. This
Mhm.
is the future of
Yeah.
your company is on the line. Put it all into AI, pick one, put it on black, hope you win. I think it's that big. The small businesses I see as a chance to do something creative, to get an edge. There's a market here. And so if you can be flexible and pivot and you're not making huge investments, but you can make little tiny shifts to get ahead of your competition, great. But I think the one that people miss is this middle ground of there's a lot of good, solid businesses out there that are just, I mentioned roofing, but maybe they're making cabinets or they're selling booths to restaurants and stuff that I've worked with in the past, or garage door manufacturers. You're gonna be okay. Garage door manufacturing is not gonna get disrupted at a crazy amount by AI. Maybe you just learn a little bit. If a tool is huge, you're going to hear about it. You don't need to dive into AI forums, disrupt your whole business, and break your sales and marketing funnels. Trying crazy stuff is like just take the obvious tools, take the obvious wins. Use Copilot that's already released in your Microsoft, or use Gemini because it's already in your Google workspace. And just don't be a laggard, but just keep pace with the mainstream, I think is a message that people don't hear enough.
Yeah, that's the taker approach. And it's an absolutely fine strategy for a lot of companies. So, like you said, you don't have to be on the leading edge. Just keep up with what's going on, leverage the tools that your vendors are providing to you, and see where it goes.